I never imagined my 35th birthday would be the day my entire life shattered into a million pieces. I woke up that morning with my husband Marcus kissing my forehead, whispering happy birthday like he did every year. We'd been married for 8 years, together for 10, and I thought I knew everything about him. I thought our life was perfect. I was so incredibly wrong. Marcus had planned this elaborate birthday dinner at my favorite Italian restaurant downtown. He'd invited my closest, friends, my sister, even my parents who'd driven 3 hours to be there. I remember feeling so grateful, so loved, wearing the emerald dress he'd bought me the week before. Everything was perfect. Too perfect, I realize now. We were halfway through dinner, laughing at one of my dad's terrible jokes when I noticed her. A woman standing near the entrance staring directly at our table. She was tall, elegant, probably in her early 40s, with dark hair pulled back tight. But it was her eyes that caught me. They were filled with something I couldn't quite place. Pain, maybe, or determination. I watched as she started walking toward us, her heels clicking against the marble floor. My stomach twisted with an inexplicable sense of dread. Marcus had his back to her, still laughing, completely unaware. She stopped right behind his chair, and the entire table fell silent. I'll never forget the look on his face when he turned around. All the color drained from his cheeks. His hand, which had been holding his wine glass, started trembling so violently I thought he'd drop it. The woman looked at me with these sad, apologetic eyes and said, "I'm so sorry to interrupt your celebration, but I can't do this anymore. My name is Victoria, and Marcus is my husband." The words didn't make sense at first. They literally bounced off my brain like I was hearing a foreign language. My husband? Marcus reached for my hand, but I yanked it away. I looked around the table. My mom had her hand over her mouth. My sister's eyes were wide with shock. Everyone was frozen, like we were all trapped in some nightmare together. I heard myself laugh, this hollow, broken sound. That's insane. Marcus, tell her she's crazy. Tell everyone she's making this up. But Marcus wouldn't look at me. He was staring at the table, his jaw clenched so tight I could see the muscles working. And that's when I knew. Oh God, that's when I knew she was telling the truth. Victoria pulled out her phone with shaking hands and started showing me pictures. Marcus and her on a beach. Marcus and her at a wedding. Marcus and her in front of a house I'd never seen. And then the one that made me want to vomit, a wedding photo. Marcus in a tuxedo, this woman in a white dress, both of them smiling like they were the happiest people alive. The date stamp showed it was from 9 years ago. 9 years. 1 year before he and I got married. I stood up so fast my chair crashed backward. The entire restaurant was watching now, but I didn't care. Is this real? My voice came out as barely a whisper. Marcus finally looked at me and I saw tears streaming down his face. "Sarah, please let me explain." That's when I lost it. I started screaming at him right there in front of everyone. How could he do this? How was this even possible? Was our entire marriage a lie? Victoria was crying too now, and she told me she'd only found out about me 6 months ago. 6 months. She'd been looking through Marcus's laptop and found emails, photos, evidence of an entire second life. She said she'd been paralyzed with shock, unable to figure out what to do. She'd confronted him and he'd begged her to keep quiet, promised he'd end things with me. But he never did. And she couldn't live with the lie anymore. She said she was sorry, that she knew this would destroy me, but I deserved to know the truth. I looked at Marcus, this man I'd built my whole life around, and he was a complete stranger. "Say something," I demanded. "Explain to me how you married 2 people, how you lived 2 completely separate lives." My friends were trying to usher my parents out, to give us privacy, but I wanted them to stay. I wanted everyone to witness what he'd done. Marcus's voice was hoarse when he finally spoke. He said it started as a mistake. He'd met Victoria first, married her young, but things got complicated, distant. Then he met me at that conference in Chicago, and he fell in love. He said he'd planned to divorce Victoria, but her mother got sick with cancer, and he couldn't leave her during that. Then her mother died, and Victoria fell into depression. He kept waiting for the right time, but it never came. So he just kept living both lives. Different cities, careful scheduling, elaborate lies. He had 2 phones, 2 email accounts, 2 versions of himself. I felt like I was floating above my body, watching this horror unfold. How many times had he said he was traveling for work when he was actually with her? How many holidays, anniversaries, ordinary Tuesdays were all built on lies? Victoria told me he split his time, 2 weeks with me, 2 weeks with her. He told her he worked offshore. He told me he worked in consulting requiring constant travel. We both believed him because why wouldn't we? You don't suspect the person you love of living a double life. My sister finally got me out of that restaurant. I don't remember walking to her car. I just remember sitting in the passenger seat, staring at nothing, my mind completely blank. Then the panic hit. Everything was a lie. Every memory, every moment, every word he'd ever said to me was contaminated by this massive deception. Did he love me? Did he love her? Did he love anyone? Or was he just a sociopath who enjoyed manipulating people? That night, I stayed at my sister's house, unable to sleep, unable to cry, unable to process any of it. Victoria had given me her number, said we should talk when I was ready. I wasn't ready. I didn't know if I'd ever be ready. But 3 days later, I called her. We met at a coffee shop, 2 women whose lives had been destroyed by the same man, trying to piece together the truth. She told me everything. Marcus had an apartment in Portland where he lived with her. They had a life there. Friends, routines, a whole community that knew them as a married couple. He'd shown her pictures of me, told her I was his sister. His sister. I wanted to laugh at the absurdity of it all. She showed me more photos, videos. There was Marcus at her nephew's birthday party, Marcus helping her repaint their kitchen, Marcus looking completely natural and comfortable in this entirely separate existence. The logistics of it were insane. He'd had 2 separate insurance policies, 2 car payments, even filed 2 separate tax returns using slightly different social security numbers, which was actual fraud. Victoria and I spent hours comparing timelines, text messages, trying to understand how he'd pulled this off. The man was meticulous. He had systems, backup plans, explanations ready for every possible scenario. When I thought he was with clients, he was with her. When she thought he was working offshore, he was with me. Victoria asked me what I was going to do. I told her I honestly didn't know. The shock was still too fresh. Everything I thought I knew about my life had been obliterated. Marcus kept calling, texting, showing up at my sister's house. I got a restraining order. I couldn't even look at him without feeling physically sick. Victoria filed for divorce immediately. She said she'd wasted enough of her life on him. I admired her strength because I felt like I was drowning. My friends and family tried to be supportive, but they were all in shock too. They'd loved Marcus. My dad had considered him a son. My best friend Emma said she'd never suspected anything, that he'd seemed so genuine, so devoted to me. That was the worst part. He had been devoted in his way. He'd shown up, been present, made me feel loved. It was all real to me, even if it was based on a foundation of lies. I started seeing a therapist who specialized in trauma from betrayal. She told me what Marcus did was called bigamy, an actual crime in most states. She also said people who maintain double lives often have complex psychological issues, narcissistic traits, an ability to compartmentalize that most people don't possess. None of that made me feel better. I didn't care about psychology. I cared about the fact that my marriage, my life, everything I'd believed in was fake. Weeks passed. I moved through life like a ghost. I filed for an annulment, which was easier than divorce given the circumstances. Marcus was facing potential criminal charges. Victoria was cooperating with prosecutors. The whole thing was becoming a legal nightmare. But the emotional devastation was so much worse than any legal battle. I kept thinking about all the times I'd defended him to friends, who said he traveled too much. all the times I'd missed him while he was with her, probably not thinking about me at all. Victoria and I became unlikely friends through all of this. We'd meet for coffee, compare notes, support each other through the darkness. She told me she'd always felt something was off, but she'd ignored her instincts. I had too. There were signs. The way he was so protective of his phone, how he never wanted me to surprise him at work, the business trips that seemed excessive. But I'd trusted him completely, and trust made me blind. About 2 months after my birthday, I found out something that made everything even worse. Victoria was pregnant. She was 8 weeks along, had found out just days before she'd confronted Marcus at my birthday dinner. She said that's what finally pushed her to tell the truth. She couldn't bring a child into this web of lies. Marcus tried to use the pregnancy to manipulate her into staying, but she was done. She told him he could be involved with the child or not, but their marriage was over. I felt so many emotions hearing this news. Sadness for this innocent child who'd be born into such chaos. Anger at Marcus for continuing to make irreversible choices while living his double life. And strangely, relief. Relief that I'd found out before we had children together, which we'd been trying for. Thank God we hadn't succeeded. The thought of being permanently tied to him through a child made me want to scream. The court proceedings were surreal. Marcus showed up looking haggard, defeated. His lawyer tried to paint him as someone who'd made mistakes out of love, who'd been trapped by circumstances. It was pathetic. The judge wasn't sympathetic. Bigamy carried serious penalties, and the financial fraud made things worse. He was facing possible jail time, massive fines. Both Victoria and I were entitled to sue him for everything. Not that money mattered. No amount could give us back the years he'd stolen. During one of the hearings, Marcus tried to approach me. Security stopped him, but he shouted across the courtroom that he loved me, that everything with me had been real. I looked him dead in the eye and told him he didn't know what love meant. Real love doesn't involve deception. Real love doesn't treat people like they're expendable. Whatever he felt, it wasn't love. It was control, ego, selfishness, and I was done being his victim. Slowly, painfully, I started rebuilding my life. I moved to a new apartment, changed my phone number, deleted every photo of us from my social media. My friends threw me an unwedding party where we burned my wedding dress in a bonfire. It felt ridiculous and therapeutic all at once. I started taking painting classes, something I'd always wanted to do but never made time for. I focused on rediscovering who I was outside of being Marcus's wife. Victoria and I stayed in touch. She had her baby, a beautiful little girl she named Grace. She asked me if I wanted to meet her, and surprisingly, I did. Holding this innocent baby who had no idea about the chaos surrounding her birth made me feel hopeful for the first time. Life goes on. People survive unimaginable things. Victoria was proving that. She was building a new life as a single mom, stronger than she'd ever been. Marcus ended up serving 18 months for bigamy and fraud. I didn't attend his sentencing. I didn't need closure from watching him be punished. My closure came from choosing myself, from refusing to let his betrayal define my future. The therapist told me recovery from this kind of trauma takes years, and she was right. Even now, I have moments where I question everything. Can you ever really know someone? How do you trust again after something like this? But I'm learning that his actions were about him, not about my worth or judgment. I'm learning that healing isn't linear, that some days I'm fine and others I'm furious all over again. I'm learning that I'm, stronger than I ever imagined I could be. That stranger who walked up to my birthday dinner and destroyed my world? She actually saved me. She freed me from a lie I'd have kept living indefinitely. I'm dating again now, taking things slow. I'm honest about my past because I refuse to hide it. If someone can't handle my story, they're not right for me. And you know what? I'm happy. Not the naive, everything is perfect happy I was before, but a deeper, harder-won happiness that comes from surviving something devastating and choosing to keep going anyway. My 35th birthday was the worst day of my life, but it was also the day I got my life back, the day I stopped living someone else's lie and started living my truth.